What's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Abundance Podcast. So, here with us today, we have Warren Ross, another very interesting guest. So, Warren is an experienced salesman and marketing professional. He has incredible knowledge and insights on building relationships and sales techniques. And also, he is the co founder of the GLC Income Fund, an investment fund that goes after white collar criminals. So, what's up, Warren? How are you,
Yeah,
man?
thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you for inviting me.
My pleasure. Thanks for coming in. So, why don't you start by introducing yourself and telling us a little bit about your current project, so your fund.
Yeah, happy to do that. My name is Warren, and the project that I'm involved with is pretty exciting. We get to go after white collar bad guys, like what you just mentioned, and it really boils down to doing the right thing in a world where a lot of times people are stealing from others and then getting away with it. And we're able to change that because of what our fund does. And we're looking to actually completely change our industry as we go in the process of doing what we do with court judgments.
Interesting. So, you go after criminals that doesn't pay their debt. So, can you how do you do that? Are you in the CIA or are you the detective? How do you do that?
That's a great question. What we do is we do something called post judgment enforcement. So when you go to court, if you have a lawsuit, if somebody steals money from you, what you're encouraged to do is you get a lawyer and sue them, right?
Yep.
Once you sue that person, then you go through a process. Usually it takes years. And the end result of that process is called a judgment. The judge decides that party A is owed by party B X amount of dollars. For example, you sue somebody, the judge says, yep, they did take advantage of you, or they did steal, or they didn't meet their agreement, or they caused a damage. And I'm going to award you $150,000 that they owe you. And that's what a judgment is. Unfortunately, if the debtor is not an insurance company or a really big public type of company, 80 to 90% of those judgments never get collected.
80 to 90%.
Yes, unfortunately. Those judgments that get to that point, the people that owe that money usually never pay it, and nobody forces them to pay it, which is what's broken in the lawsuit and judgment world.
And so, how come nobody forces them to pay? Like, isn't it criminal not to pay your debt?
Because they don't know how. They don't know how to find the money. The problem that exists in our situation is the lawyers know how to litigate to get the judgment, but they don't know how to find the assets of the judgment debtor. They have the idea of what they need to do legally, but usually what happens is the judgment debtor says, I don't have any money, I can't pay. And often that's a lie.
Right. So there's no authority that forces them and that are takes the responsibility of making them pay.
There is not. It is your job, once you are a judgment creditor, to collect your judgment. So if you were the judgment creditor, if somebody had taken advantage of a situation, they owed you that $150,000, it's now your job to collect it. So how are you going to do that?
It's hard. So
That's why they don't get collected.
right. So I mean, but if you can point out for a fact that the money is in
Mhm.
that bank account, then they must pay you, right?
Yes, then you can do different things. There are different legal procedures that you can do if you know where the judgment debtor has money to be able to collect it. That
Mm,
is where the problem lies.
right.
They claim they don't have any money, and you don't have any way to find out if they do, or if they do, where it is.
Hmm. Okay. So I mean, let's say I sue someone
Mhm.
and I won. So he
Right.
now owes me, let's say, $300,000.
Okay.
Then, but he's not been paying me for the last year, and I know he won't pay me. So
Mhm.
then, how does your fund come in to help me?
how our fund comes in to help you, you are a judgment creditor, you have a $300,000 debt that nobody can collect, is I buy that debt from you. Debts can be bought and sold, as collection agencies and various other businesses do all the time. But we're dealing with a judgment now, something that's completely uncollectible. Nobody knows how to collect. And so I buy it. And because nobody knows how to collect it, it's not that valuable. And so I can buy it for pennies on the dollar. And so I help you by giving you something instead of nothing. As a judgment creditor, would it be better for me to give you, let's say, $15,000, or you get nothing and that's just where it ends? What would be
So
better?
I mean, clearly the $15,000.
So I give you the 15,000, and then we do a little bit of legal paperwork so that the fund now owns the judgment, and then our legal recovery team takes over and they do what they can to go collect the judgment. And as long as I recover more than I pay, then my business is profitable and I'm able to create an incredible return for our investors.
That is so interesting. That's like a business model that is a really, really blue ocean business model.
Nobody
And
does this. Nobody knows how to do this. One of my partners has been in the private investigation side of life for almost 40 years, and he knows how to find the money. And that is kind of our secret sauce, is taking that knowledge and systematizing it so that we can scale it into a way that allows us to enforce judgments that nobody else can enforce.
right. So that makes a lot of sense. So yeah, because clearly you need some experience and you need a team to have that kind of business model. So
Correct.
can you tell us a little bit more about your team and like who, like you're the, for those of you listening who don't know, you're the capital raiser, and then
Yes.
who's the other members of your team?
There are three of us that are involved. Jay Greenwald is the fund manager. He kind of operates like a CEO, takes care of, keeps the business running, all the different aspects of it. He's kind of the captain of the ship. I work on the sales side of things. Sales and marketing is what I do best. And Rod Gagnon, is in charge of our whole recovery department, analyst department, all of the areas that involve deciding what judgments to buy and then collecting on those judgments that we do buy. One of the amazing things about the volume of judgments that are available is that we don't have to buy that many judgments to be extremely profitable, and we're able to only pick the investments that are the best investments for our investors.
Hmm. So yeah, is there a lot of people looking to get their debt purchased by some kind of a, well, by a fund like yours?
No, actually, most people don't even know that this is a possibility. So we have systems in place to go and find them and let them know that there are people that could give them something instead of the nothing that they're getting now.
Hmm. Right. But there's a lot of person that are not getting paid their debt.
Oh, there are, think about it, 3,000 counties, over 3,000 counties in the United States alone. And each of those counties has courts, right? And every county court is creating judgments every single month. Every month, somebody is suing somebody else. And most of those private and smaller type of suits get into a situation that there is a judgment and then nobody collects it. And
Hmm.
there, every single month, thousands and thousands of these are being created. It never really ends right now.
Right. Okay, so now you've purchased a judgment.
Right.
How do you find the money?
Now that we're going to have to actually talk to Rod. And so maybe at some point in the future, we could get my partner on to talk to you on a podcast about
Sure,
that.
I'd love to. Yeah.
But in just a capsulized version, we basically are able to use different systems that are in place to find the resources, the assets, the money, uh, real estate, cars, boats, airplanes, whatever the judgment debtor has. We have a lot of systems in place to go and find that. And then we just have to show to the court that those assets that we found really do belong to the judgment debtor. And then we can use the power of the legal system to collect those, not because they're volunteering to give us the money that they owe, but because we are able to take it from them with the
Mhm.
power of the courts.
So how come like, because I thought it was like cash hidden in like the Caribbeans, or like cash hidden in
It
like
can be,
some
yeah. Sometimes somebody says, hey, I have taken my money to the Cayman Islands. I have put it in a trust in Wyoming. I
Hmm.
have done something and you can't touch it. And so we go find it and then we take it.
Okay, but if it's like a boat or a house, like how come nobody can find it? It's obvious, right? You have a
Um,
boat or you have a house, so I mean,
yes,
you gotta
it
be a detective.
there are different rules that apply to all of these different situations in regard to a boat, an airplane, a house. And then also, most of these kind of assets actually have debts attached to them. So if you have a house, you usually have a mortgage. And then the more, if you do attach yourself and say that the judgment debtor needs to use that and he owes us money, is the other debt has to be paid as well if you go through a foreclosure proceeding, for example. So it gets a little complicated, and that's where having an expert and an expert team in the recovery process really comes in.
Hmm. Right. So, what kind of experience is required to be that kind of private investigator and to find the money?
Well, that again is a question we're going to have to ask
Right.
Rod,
Okay. Yeah.
but it boils down to all of the legal and private investigation training involved in finding the money, following the money is what's required in the
Mhm.
collection side of things, and very few people it because it really takes experience plus training to be able to do that.
So, how many judgments have you guys succeededly bought and like get paid?
Right. I can't give you the exact numbers, but at this point, over the last 3 or 4 years, we have dozens of these judgments, a little pool of those judgments, actually hundreds now, because we're buying pools of judgments that have, like we bought a pool of judgments that has over 700 judgments in Texas. So there's hundreds of them that we've dealt with, and the returns are just absolutely mind-boggling because of our success rates.
So, I mean, that's a lot of work for a team of 3 person, 700
It,
judgments.
Yes, the team of 3 people are we really head up departments. We have a lot of other people that we've hired and train them. Basically, we have a lot of teams of people. We don't just have 3 people to find 700 judgments. We have a lot of people involved. You end up we work with a lot of lawyers. We are always paying. We have a lot of cash going out to legal teams, to lawyers, to investigators. There's a lot of people that we work with to accomplish what we do every day.
Hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes more sense than just the three of you guys.
But everything kind of comes down to the 3 of us making sure that everything happens, because if we're not doing our job, then we're not going to collect anything or we're not going to buy any judgments. So we all have to be doing what we need to do each
Hmm.
day.
And I mean, I'm not 100% sure if you can share this, but can you give us like a case study of a case that you did, like without being too specific with the names and
At this
everything?
point, because of privacy agreements and things like that, I can't really get into details. Again, Rod would be somebody that I think we should talk to in regard to those kind of details.
Hmm.
But the returns just are absolutely incredible. Just a little case study that we created of 10 or I think it's 10 different judgments that we were 10x on our returns just in those, taking $400,000 into 4 million kind of numbers. Now that's just general things. I
Sure.
can't, guarantee that kind of result for investors, but it's absolutely mind boggling what we get to do every day.
Hmm. And an investor in your fund should be looking like in your target return. What's your target return?
Our target IRR is in the 20 to 30% category right now. And that's going to be very easy for us to achieve based on our past results. We'll probably far exceed that, but it's too good to be true. And as you've heard before, if something's too good to be true, what is it? It probably is. So we are, based on our past results, are being very conservative in our target IRRs and what we're doing. But anybody who gets involved now is going to really be blessed with the returns that we're able to achieve in this fund.
Yeah, I guess so. So, what's your success rate?
We actually, and that's one of the things that actually is so amazing, is we're able to flip on its head that 80 percent of judgments that don't collect, the ones that we buy. Again, we only buy the ones that really look like we have a road to collect. We don't buy the ones that we are very clearly unable to collect. And we collect about 80% of them, 70, 80% of those judgments that we buy, we actually are able to collect at least as much as we paid for them. Now, we do pay so little for them that it doesn't take much to at least break even on a judgment that we buy. But if we can find the assets, and those are the ones that we buy, we do very well.
So 70 to 80% win rate, and you buy it for a few cents on the dollars.
That is how it works, yes, sir.
So yeah, that's pretty good ratios. That's pretty good
And it's
metrics.
a blue ocean that nobody knows exists. It's something that is going to get better the worse the economy gets. So
Yeah.
anybody that needs to diversify into a part of our economy that does better when the economy gets worse, the JLC Income Fund is one of the best places you could do that.
hmm And so tell us a little bit more about how you guys find this blue ocean.
It is an incredible story. It boils down to Rod and Jay met when they were both in Cincinnati. Jay has been in real estate for decades and decades. A lot of syndications, a lot of things that he did in a lot of different areas, everywhere from single family all the way to multifamily and a lot of other commercial real estate type of projects. And Jay and Rod met while they were on different projects in Cincinnati, and the business of combining what Rod knows and what Jay knows, where Rod knows how to syndicate and Rod knows how to go collect, combined. And Jay has been my dad's business partner for decades, and so that's how I got involved in this group. So it's really been amazing.
And so, has any of you guys like been involved in like legal issues before?
Um,
Like not
Rod has
you
for
concerning yourself, like not you being the the criminal, but like I mean in the court
Well,
or
I mean,
the
personally, I've had problems as a landlord. I had a
Mm.
situation where I couldn't collect from a tenant. It was actually kind of ugly, and I don't know that we have time to get into all this. But I had a tenant that I was way too nice to. I broke all my own rules and let them move in, and then they didn't pay their rent, and they it was a lease with an option to buy kind of thing, and they ended up having a raccoon and two dogs, and they used the basement as a litter box, and it was thousands and thousands of dollars of damage. And then I ended up with a judgment, and then I couldn't collect it. So I came to the opinion that judgments were completely uncollectible. They were worthless. And there was I licked my wounds, sold my property. It had been a property that we had lived in before, and so that was very painful. And so when I heard that Jay and Rod were doing this with judgments, I was skeptical. I really didn't think it was real. I thought it was just, they were some scheme that just didn't make any sense. But now that I've got to see it firsthand, it's been incredible.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing, really.
Right. And so yeah, now can you introduce yourself as a salesman and tell us like your sales tactics? 'Cause that's another thing I want to talk about in this podcast is to give the listeners some advice and some insights on a very experienced and seasoned salesman.
Well, thank you. The I appreciate the very kind words, and that is my business. I've spent my whole career in sales, and that's really what I bring to the JLC Income Fund is capital raising. And within the business that we do, I'm involved in the acquisition, which is a sales and marketing type of thing. So any of the things more to do with collecting, we'll have to talk to Rod. But in regard to sales, that's what I've done forever. When I was your age, a long time ago now, um, I started by selling computer services back in the '80s when that happened. A personal computer was really kind of a big deal, and nobody really kind of knew how to run them. And so I, as a young teenager, started helping people by tutoring them on how to use their personal computers. And that led to a career in sales. I ended up working with family business where we had a retail business. We sold doors and windows. And we sold that business. That led to me being a salesman for other companies. I worked for a manufacturing company, a startup division that we went from 0 to 6 million over the course of several years. And then that involved a lot of travel. A lot of sales jobs involve a lot of travel. And as I did that, it then went to the place that I kind of worked for myself again, doing real estate stuff with my dad, with Jay. And then I ended up getting tired of traveling. So I stayed home and decided to just get a regular car sales job. And so I then sold cars for a decade. And then this opportunity came along, and the opportunity to be generous and help others was too incredible. And I'm very glad that I'm doing what we're doing now.
Hmm. So, what's the biggest difference between selling a simple product like a car or computers and raising money for an investment fund?
At the basis, there is no difference. One of the things that's really important for all of our listeners to remember is that everyone is always listening to a radio station. Zig Ziglar, in one of his trainings, told me that everybody's listening to WIIFM. Now, what that stands for, and you can go look at Zig Ziglar's training and learn a lot about this, is what's in it for me. And all sales trainers will talk about this. Everybody wants what's best for them. And so you, as a capital raiser, you as a salesperson, needs to always be looking out for the best interest of your customers, of your prospects. And that needs to be genuine from your heart. You really need to be helping others and giving generously. Your customer will give you money because they are getting what they want. People don't buy a car because I don't want a car. They buy a car because they want a car and
Hmm.
they want a good deal. And if you can do that, then you're helping them, and that ends up paying your bills as well. So Zig Ziglar said, you get out of life the most by giving to others. The more you give to others, the more you're going to get. And that's how it really works.
Hmm. Would you say though that like there's a lot more like trust involved when you're raising money for a deal rather than selling a car, right? Because I could buy a car from a salesman that I don't trust if I like the car.
You could. And so there is that comparison. But if you had the choice between a car that you would buy from one salesman that you don't trust or another salesman that you do trust, and the cars are similar, you're going to go with the one that you trust. You're going to go with the salesman you like. We tend to buy things from people that we like, and that is, as a basis, more important than the product. So
Hmm.
even with capital raising, you can have people that would invest because they're excited about the product. The JLC Income Fund is so incredible that we've had investors, oh, please let me invest, please let me invest because of the product. But in the end, the product is just one component. The relationship matters more than the product because in order for me to give my money to you, I need to trust that you really are going to give me the value that I perceive that you're going to give me. In regard to a car, I
Hmm.
perceive that you're going to give me this good deal, and that's why I'm willing to give you that money.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, what's your approach when you first meet someone? Let's say you meet. Let's put you in in a situation. So, let's say you're at a networking event or wherever,
Mm-hmm.
and you meet someone and you know he's like a billionaire, and so
Right.
you want him to invest with you. What's your approach?
It's really important to just meet them as ordinary people. Don't try to put them on a pedestal, but don't disrespect anyone either. You need to treat everyone, whether they're a homeless person or a billionaire, in a way that you value them as a person. So a really important thing to do when I would meet at a network situation, and I'm meeting with a billionaire, for example, is just find out about them, find out about their story, find out about who they are and how you can help them. They are, even as a billionaire, they're listening to what's in it for them, and you need to find out how you can really help them. And if you can't, how you can support them, how you can make their dreams and visions come true. Because when your focus from your heart really is to help others, everything's going to work out really well, even with really big investors.
Hmm. And that's how you build trust.
That is. And relationships and trust are the foundation for everything you do in capital raising. Your network is, and the referrals you get, the trust that you build is more important than almost everything else. You need
Mm-hmm.
to really be helping others. If you're not helping others, if you're not giving, then you're probably wasting your time.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, um, you said not to put them on like on a higher level than you and just to treat them as a regular person. So, do you elevate your status? And do you have like some status elevation thing that you do, or you just
The word that comes to mind is confidence.
confidence?
The reason why you might be nervous to go and talk to somebody who's in your mind on a pedestal because they're famous, because they have hundreds of millions of dollars, because they're a billionaire, um, is because you are doing something in your mind that causes there to be a big difference between you. But if you have confidence that they're a normal person and you're a normal person, if you can be yourself and be confident in your approach, they're going to see that. And the people that are confident are people that we will initially respond in a way as peers. If I don't think that you are my peer, one of the things that happens all the time is we're always on placing people where they're at in relation to us just when we meet them. We look at them, we look at their clothes, we look at how they carry themselves, we look at how they talk, we hear how they talk, and we say, oh, that person's probably a waste of my time. I've had experiences with people like that, not good. I don't want to have much to do with them. You finish the conversation, you go on.
Mm-hmm.
If somebody talks to you like they're a peer, and when you're talking to them, it feels like they are a peer, then you're willing to talk to them because they're a peer. Um, but if in your mind they're so far above you that you can't be their peer, then you're not going to have that confidence. So the word again is confidence.
That makes sense. Um, so now, how do you implement the formula? So the famous formula, which is a hook, story, offer.
Right. And that's something that any marketing or salesperson should be aware of, and is that everything begins with something that attracts us. And that's what in marketing we call a hook. So anything that is going to eventually lead to a purchase, anything that's going to lead to an economic transaction where I give you money, you give me value, um, is going to happen because I got attention. You can't have that economic transaction. You can't have the investment, in our case, in regard to funds, without first of all an attraction. So a hook has got to be something that gets that attention. And often in a networking event, for example, um, we use the word elevator pitch. I'm not sure I like that because we don't stand in elevators and talk to people anymore. But when you approach somebody, people are evaluating in the first few seconds whether or not they want to talk to you. And so you have to have a way that makes them say, hey, I want to talk to you. And so that's what the hook is. So you have to have something that's interesting that causes me to say, Alex, I'd like to know more. So somebody asks in a networking in an event, what do you do? That's the question that we like to ask because we're uncomfortable with not knowing something about each other. So what do you do? And then you have to have an answer to that question that's interesting and compelling so that they want to know more.
Mm-hmm. And so you do that by not telling it like upfront without any intrigue, right? You want to tell a little bit so that they're interested and they want to know more, and so they ask you questions, and then the ball is rolling.
Right. For example, if you asked me, what do I do? I've never met you before. I say, well, we go after white collar bad guys. What does that do in your mind?
Yeah, I want to know more because I'm intrigued right now. I mean, what do you mean?
What do you mean? Are you part of the FBI? Are you part of the government? Do I need to back away here and be careful
Am I
because
in
you might?
danger?
Yeah, there might be something here that's it's just, yeah. Are you part of the mafia? I don't know. Um, there, it's intriguing enough that you want to know more,
Mm-hmm.
and that's the same thing um, with anything that you do. Welcome to the Chevrolet store I work for. How can I be of service? You have to have something that says, oh, that guy might be able to help me. Because you're going to have something that will overcome all the objections that exist because we're actually scared of strangers. And so we have to become a friend very quickly because if we're a stranger, we don't want to have anything to do with those guys. Those guys might, we don't know. They're just it's scary.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then,
So,
yeah, go ahead.
sorry, go on. You
That
asked
was.
about the hook, story, and offer, and the hook and story kind of go together. And so the hook is the intrigue, the story is the answer to that question.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. And how do you build a good story?
Again, you have to start with the right hook. If you have the right hook, then you just answer the question in a way that tells a story. If you start telling the story, all of us like to hear a story. There's nobody that doesn't want to hear about a story.
Mm-hmm.
And we all have stories. You have stories. Everyone who is doing anything has a story. Whether we perceive it to be important or not is completely irrelevant because the person we're talking to, if you can tell your story in a way that's interesting, you're going to get all kinds of people to say, and then what happened? And then what happened? You can read any story that is interesting and you want to read the next page because you want to know what happens next, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do the same thing with your hook and story. First of all, you have to have something interesting, and then you make sure that your story also leaves whoever you're talking to wanting to know more. Don't tell them too much, but tell them enough that they're interested.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. And I've talked to you, and it seems like it's kind of your approach, right? To don't tell them too much, but tell them enough so that there's another question in their mind, and then you can tell them more. Like kind of set them up for the next question and for the next step instead of just laying it all out on the open and telling like your whole fun in one monologue, and then they probably their attention is probably on something else at the half of your monologue.
Yeah, and that's something I've had to learn the hard way. I tend to talk too much, and especially when I get nervous. So it's one of those things that it's taken a long time to get to the place that I can do what I'm talking about. It takes practice. You have to go do it.
Hmm. Yeah. So, have you got any like big failures in sales in your sales experience?
Big failures. I have anybody who sales has more people tell them no than tell them
Hmm.
yes. And so if you think of it as a failure, then you can't be in sales, which is why most people can't be in sales is they can't handle what they perceive to be rejection.
So, how,
You
how
have
should
to
one cope with rejection?
well, you have to realize that they're not rejecting you. They're rejecting your offer, your product, your situation. People say no because they don't know enough to say yes. And so you have to realize and separate yourself personally, individually, from what you're doing, what you're selling, what you're marketing,
And
and
who you are?
then work on improving that.
That makes sense. And so now we've covered the hook, the story, and now what about the offer?
The offer needs to be compelling and not only it needs to be very generous. Anything that you buy because you really feel that you're getting more than what you paid for. And if you don't, you're not happy about it. You want to be able to buy something that you can tell your friend, your family, whoever that's around you about what you bought. It's like, wow, I bought this. I mean, I just got a C8 Corvette. I want to tell everybody about it. It's the most incredible car you have ever seen. It's the first time. Do you see how excited I would get as a buyer of that thing? In
Hmm.
this case, just a Corvette, which is an incredible car, by the way, one of the best and best value supercars that exist on the planet. But then again, I'm a Chevy guy, so I have prejudices, but I believe that very strongly. And one of the things that happens in your hook, story, and offer is you are taking your belief and you are transferring it to someone else. And they see that because you do believe it, that maybe they should too. And so you're doing this, and it's like, wow, wow, wow. I want to tell everybody about this. The people that invest in our fund, they're like, I want to be able to tell other people I found the most incredible investment opportunity ever, and I'm really excited about it. This is going to
Mm-hmm.
really be good for me. I'm going to really do well with this investment. Now, you feel that way about anything you invest in, or you wouldn't invest. And that's what the feeling that we have to get to with an offer. It
Mm-hmm.
has to be something that, wow, I better invest, because the fear of missing out then kicks in. None of us want to miss out. We want to, we don't want to miss out. We want to have the things that make us feel good. And there's a lot of different things like that.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the thing that's also incredible about your fund is that it really has intrinsically a big wow factor.
Oh, it
Like,
really does. It's incredible.
you know, because I've talked to a lot of fund managers, and because we're in the same network of fund management, so you
Mhm.
know as well, and you know, so a lot of people, their fund is like, yeah, I do real estate, multifamily, or like, yeah, I
Mhm.
do real estate, commercial real estate. It's like,
Mhm.
okay, good. Like, I already know what you do. Maybe you have
Mhm.
a little bit of a secret sauce, but like, I don't really want to know more. I'm not that into real estate. And you know, even private equity like intrinsically is more interesting, because you know you're investing in private company, it's exciting, and venture capital even more. But like your fund like specifically has a big wow factor. Like, it's so blue ocean, and you're like, I've never heard about this, but this seems genius and this makes sense. So
Thank you.
I
Most people don't even know what a judgment is unless they've been in a lawsuit.
yeah. And so I mean, for you, your offer and your Y factor and making people seem like they had a good deal is easier. But let's say you were selling something boring,
Okay.
like
Right.
um, a, a, a cell phone, not a cell phone, but like, you know,
Okay.
something boring. How
Mhm.
do you get that wow factor and you make people feel like they had a good deal?
It's really important to find out what their genuine needs are. We have needs for something that's very common. We have needs for all kinds of things, and everybody has those same needs. We need food. We need shelter. We need water. We need companionship. We need different things that we, and everybody's in different stages of life. Everybody needs different things at different times. And so, how you do that is by being genuinely interested in the person that you're talking to. So, I would need to find out from you, Alex, what your needs are and what your story is and why you're here talking to me. And then I need to present what I have that's very ordinary as the very best solution for your need. And I am so happy to be able to meet that need, because, water is everywhere, but if you don't have the right water, you're going to die. And I
Hmm.
really want you to be alive. So I'm going to help you get the very best water. And the way you're going to do that is by this product that I have, which helps us filter the water. For example, if I was selling a reverse osmosis filtering system, or some kind of water purification system, and that's just an ordinary product. Everybody has it. It's almost a commodity type of product. Same thing if I were selling, a cell phone, a meal. You need to buy bread. Whatever it is, it's about fulfilling your needs in the best way possible. And if you can't get excited about that, then you need to find something that you can help people with, that you can be excited about.
Hmm.
And you really should be able to be excited about anything if it genuinely is helping others.
Right. So I guess my understanding of this is that everybody has the same needs, but then they kind of express it differently, and you know, there's kind of different variation of those
Mhm.
needs. But your product that you want to sell solves like a basic need, like a need that everybody has, but that they express differently, and then
Mhm.
you ask question to them to find out what their needs are. But their needs is really everybody's needs, because everybody has the same needs, and so your product is kind of personalized for everybody if you approach it right.
And integrity is so important. You need to be honest with your prospect when what you have is not for them. You need to
Yeah.
be honest when you have discovered that their need is different than what your product provides.
Hmm.
There are times that I did the best work I did by not selling and by actually telling my prospect, I don't think this is for you. It doesn't really meet your needs, and here's why. And that actually ends up building a relationship that will cause you down the road to benefit more than even selling something to them at that moment.
Yeah, 100%. And yeah, you don't want to sell something that doesn't match your need. And with my fund, that's also something that I want to do, because I know a lot of people, and I don't want to sell to everybody. I only want to sell with people that I want to work with,
Mm-hmm.
and I only want to sell with people that I know that I can solve their needs, right? Because my
Right.
fund, we do a 15 to 20% return on the stock market, but
Uh-huh.
there's a lot of people that only want 5% return. So if
Okay.
someone want a
Right.
5% return, then I know a guy who does 5% return. And
Right.
if someone want a 50 to 100% return, I also know a guy who does a 50 to 100% return. Of
Right.
course, he takes on more risk. So
Right.
I mean, I only want to sell to people like having an avatar, and I only want to sell to people who are trying to retire early, grow their wealth, and want a
Mm-hmm.
moderate risk with 15 to 20% return, right? So yeah.
Yes, you exactly want to make sure that what you're doing is best for who you're working
um,
with. And if you are always genuinely interested in what's best for others, it's really going to show. And be generous. Really give the, and it needs to be from your heart. Don't have some kind of facade of generosity. You have to really be wanting to give, and you really need to want to help people. But you need to realize that as you do that, you will end up helping yourself. You will end up benefiting yourself as well. But your heart needs to be to make sure that the winner is not you, but your prospect, your
mhm,
customer. And it's not necessarily a win win proposition insofar as this is equal. It's benefiting you just as much as it's benefiting me. It really needs to benefit them a lot more than it benefits you. And when you do that, everybody is so much better off.
mhm. Yeah. And so your fund,
Mm-hmm.
who is it not made for?
Who is it not made for? It's not made for somebody who needs something that is you know ordinary, is just run of the mill, is something that they've done 100 times before. This is something that is innovative. It's something that if you've never seen this industry, if it's something that is just if it goes outside your comfort zone for risks. So it boils down to making sure that your risk tolerance matches the risk that exists in our fund. So not everybody has the same risk tolerance. And any of us as fund managers who deal with investors needs to really understand the risk tolerance factors of the people that we're talking to and make sure that the risk tolerance that they have matches what fits well with your fund.
Yeah. So what's your level of risk in your fund?
Let's say we bought a bunch of pools of judgments and we can't collect them, then we lose that money. So
Yeah,
that
but
is the risk that exists. Now, because of our experience, we feel very confident that the risk is very low. But because most people perceive that the very worst debts to buy are the uncollectible debts that are beyond post judgment and nobody can collect them. If that's your perception and you don't understand what we do and are not willing to go through that process, then no, this is not something for you, because we tend to um, believe, invest in things that we can believe in.
hmm so that makes a lot of sense. And would you say that like your risk profile, is it risky? Is it risk averse? Like,
It
because
the
you talked about finding an investor that
so in
their risk profile matches with yours.
So
So
inversing risk is really important for an investor. One of the things that helps all investors is to be able to make money no matter what happens, right?
yep.
So if you want to make money no matter what happens, you need to diversify your investments so that if this happens with the economy, then I win with that part of my investment. But if this other thing happens with the economy, then I win with that investment. So a lot of people, for example, if you invest only in real estate, then when real estate's going great, you're doing great. But what if real estate falls apart? Everything isn't working. All of your real estate investments are not returning the way that you thought they would because of a correction or whatever else is happening in the real estate market. You need something that will balance that risk, that will be making money while so you have different investments in different things. So all investors are doing this. Consciously or unconsciously, they are trying to diversify their risks. They are trying to make sure that they have part of their investment strategy in different things so that no matter what happens, they're going to be okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so, one of the things that happens with what we do is we are providing a inverse risk to other things that they're investing in that is going to really help, especially as the potential for economic
Yes.
challenges,
Yes.
banks going under, bankruptcies increasing, economy falling apart. Our business does really well when things get bad.
Mm-hmm.
It still does well in normal times as well, but it does even better when people are having a hard time paying their bills.
Yeah, definitely. It's a good time for us right now because even though the capital is more rare and a lot of people are fearful, but like rational people, they're gonna see that it's the best time to invest in uncorrelated um, uncorrelated assets and investment fund and alternative investments like
Yeah.
ours. And so, even though people are scared and everything, when you really think about it, like 10 years ago, when the S&P 500 and the Nasdaq were doing crazy return, like
Hmm.
10 to 15% return a year,
Yep.
um, our fund is like, yeah, it's interesting, but the QQQ, the Nasdaq 100, is already doing a 15% annualized return. But right now, everybody's fearful. There's a high risk of a recession. Some people are saying like 82, 87% risk of a recession. And I agree with that. And, people are fearful. There's not much greed in the financial market. There's more
Right.
fear, I'd say.
Hmm.
So people want to diversify now more than ever, and people have businesses. They don't just have stocks, right? They have
Right.
real estate, which is also correlated. They have
Right.
businesses, which is also correlated. They have
Yep.
their job, which is also correlated. So everything is so correlated to the underlying market environment.
Hmm.
So that a fund like yours and mine like are like in one of the best time to actually raise money.
Yeah, because right now we have an opportunity to actually inverse your risk factor to be able to make more money because things go down.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that way you don't lose everything in a situation. Obviously, every investor needs to be careful what they do and how they inversely take care of their risk. But it's really important to have opportunities as an investor to find ways that your investment will do well in bad times.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that we get to do. So anybody who's looking for that, the JLC Income Fund is a great opportunity.
So is there a link to the underlying market conditions? Like, is there more lawsuits in certain market condition, or is it completely like no link at all, uncorrelated completely? There's like no effect.
There is an effect in that if people are having a hard time paying their bills, they're more likely to not keep their agreements. They're more likely to do things that lead to lawsuits. And they're more likely to try to hide what they have and not pay their partners. Unfortunately, when times get bad, a lot of people that are those white collar bad guys start doing even worse things, and that's when the our business actually increases considerably.
Perfect. So it's better for you to be in a recession.
Yeah, unfortunately, it is. But at the same token, we do very well when the economy is going great. So
Yeah, the
there's
correlation is
always
not that
somebody
high.
that's trying to take advantage of somebody else. There's always scams. There's always white collar bad guys that would prefer to be dishonest than honest.
Hmm.
And so that's where our business will always have business. But when things get bad, unfortunately, the bad guys even tend
Make
to
more
be
money.
doing more bad things. Increasing. So, in other words, let's say the economy's great. Well, they'll steal a little bit, but they won't steal as much. The economy's going
Mhm.
terrible. They're going to really say, okay, I'm not even going to keep my agreement. I'm keeping all the money. I'm not paying. That's just
Yeah.
how it is.
And could you do that? What you're doing with companies as well? Because I think right now you're doing it with the individual. Could you do it with like a big pharmaceutical company or something like that, or is there
We do
already
it
a body
with
that does it?
companies and individuals both. So yes, we and any we deal with a lot of bankruptcy cases. There's a lot of things. Yes, that's the all of those are areas that our fund actually works in.
So do you see that on the horizon?
Right now, the more challenges there are with the economy, the more opportunities there will be for judgments, liens, and claims.
Hmm. But let's say, like, would you guys take an uncollected debt that a big pharmaceutical company owns to someone?
We would.
And there's because if the pharmaceutical company is not paying their debt, that means they have to go bankrupt.
And that is one of the things that we always look at is the bankruptcy laws and the bankruptcy rules in each case, because if somebody dies, if there's a bankruptcy, if a company is no longer in existence, that affects the collectability of a debt. And so you have to have ways to be able to find the resources in the bankruptcy court that will help pay for that debt, and so you can receive more than what you've paid to buy that debt.
Hmm. Yeah, that makes
So
sense.
each case is different, and that's where the analytical department and all of our research guys, the department that Rod heads, all of those people that we hire there, that is really an important part of our business, so that we only invest in the things that have the most upside potential.
Hmm. Would you say it's scalable, your fund?
It is, and that is because the judgments tend to become pools of judgments when you have the resources to scale it up. So anybody who is owed a lot of money, that does a lot of business, has a lot of bad debts, and goes through the whole legal process, ends up with a bunch of judgments. So a bank, for example, could have a bunch of judgments. Any of these other companies that have, I bought from a construction company, a really big construction company, some judgments. And what ends up happening is they become pools of judgments. And as you scale it up, you're able to buy a lot of judgments at a time in from companies that have a whole bunch of people that haven't paid them, and now they have lawsuits, and now they have judgments, but they still don't collect.
Yeah, that makes sense because I mean, collecting like individual debt, it's appealing, but I mean, it's not scalable. But going
Right.
after company, would you say that going after companies that has a lot of judgments against them is the future and the vision for your fund?
We're probably going to be dealing with a lot more pools of judgments from the various entities that have those pools of judgments. Yes,
So when you say
but we'll
pool of
still be
judgment,
doing the individual judgments.
it's all the same person, right? It's all from the same person. It's not like a pool of judgments of 100 different individual. It's a pool of judgments of 100 lawsuit on the same company.
No, it is a pool of judgments on 100 different people usually
So you have to treat them and to find the money
on
individually
each
for
case.
each person.
Hmm. Yes.
Okay, so it's not that scalable.
It in that there are you just it's you can't it's not inverse that way. It's the opportunities. There's 3,000 courts, over 3,000 courts in just the United States that are creating these judgments every day, and wherever those judgments end up, whoever are the judgment creditors, there's such a big supply of them that the opportunity is
Hmm.
mind-boggling.
So it's scalable in proportion and in correlation to the size of your team.
Yes.
That makes sense.
And so we will have a lot of people that are involved, because as we scale up, we're going to need that many more people doing all the work it takes to actually recover those judgments.
Hmm. For now, you're outsourcing everything, right?
Not everything, but a lot of things. We do have quite a few people that are working directly with us, but a lot of it does get outsourced as well. It
Hmm.
just depends on the situation. In a lot of cases, outsourcing makes sense. In other cases, it's better to have our own internal people, which we do have as well.
Yeah, and your own private investigator.
We do, and a private investigation team. We not only have all of Rod's experience, but we have all of the experience of the people that work for him. So it's we
Hmm.
have an incredible team.
Yeah. So if people want to reach out to you, if people want to invest, if people want to talk to you to learn more, how should they reach you?
The best thing to do right now would be to email me, or you can look at our website if you want, which is acornfundinggroup.com. That is our basic business that we've been doing for years now. And so you can there's contact me type forms on that website. But the best way to reach out to me if you want to invest is to send me an email. So wr@acornfundinggroup.com. That's my initials, wr@acornfundinggroup.com. Send me an email. Let me know that you listened to this podcast, and I will make it a priority to get in touch with you and have a visit and see if it would be a benefit.
Yeah, and I'll put your email in the description as well.
Perfect. Thank you.
Perfect. So it was great talking to you. Great learning from your sales techniques, your sales. I mean, it's not really sales technique that much that you're using. It's more generally building relationship and generally building trust by generally by really
It is.
wanting to help other
Yeah,
people.
and genuinely giving. Be very generous. Be generous with your time. Be generous with your money. Be generous with the offers that you give. You need to give so much value away that the more that you give, it always comes back.
Mhm.
Even if you don't get it back in money, you are the winner
Yeah.
in a transaction that you give more than you receive. You're going to feel better about yourself, and you're going to do more in the world.
Hmm.
Do what we do in our fund is the same thing. We want to give our investors more than they expect. We want to make sure the judgment creditors get something instead of nothing, which is more than they expect. And we want to make sure that the bad guys pay more than they ever think they're going to. We're going to make sure that we give more in all of these situations, whether we're giving money or justice or any of the other things that we provide.
Hmm. And you know what you're saying? A lot of people are searching for the overarching theme amongst successful and wealthy people. You know, there's even the book you probably read it, Think and Grow Rich, which is
Right,
like from
right. That's
a
I've read
guy,
that along. Yes.
yeah, from Napoleon Hill, who is someone who spent all of his life talking to successful people,
Hmm.
interviewing successful people in
Hmm.
order to find like the seven overarching theme and the seven common
Right.
mentality between wealthy and successful people.
Hmm.
And it doesn't talk about wanting to give back, but in my personal like networking and I wouldn't say journey, but in my personal interaction with successful and wealthy people, it's this is by far the overarching theme, right? Every people I'm networking with, which is successful in their field, um, is all saying the same thing. Like all saying the same thing. Just give, 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 give. Expect nothing back. Find out how you can
Exactly.
help others, and your priority should be always to help others, help your city, help your country, and
Yes.
then you don't even have to worry about
You're
receiving
going to be fine.
money
You're going
back.
to be
Yeah.
taken care of. You might have millions. You might be making billions of dollars. You might have all kinds of things that you receive, but you do need to learn to receive at times, but so that you can give more. And if your heart is to give, and that's one of the greatest blessings that I have received in my life was meeting and marrying my wife, who is so generous, and I was not. And the more I have learned to be generous, the better things have gotten. And it's really been a blessing to have this generosity that has become a part of who we are as a family. It's a
Hmm.
big deal.
Yeah, definitely. And what you said also resonate with surround yourself with people that you want to look like. You're the sum of you're the average of the five people you spend the most time with. So be sure to surround yourself with generous people that their priority isn't giving and that's receiving.
Right. On a very high level, I'd like to give millions and millions. And so I can't give millions and millions of dollars. I'd like to give hours and hours of time. I'd like to give, and I can't give without having. And so the more I
Hmm.
give, the more I end up having to give. And it ends up helping. And generationally, I'd like to have this continue throughout the generations to come.
Who you want to give to? Because there's a lot of cause, there's a lot of people who needs it. So what's your niche in giving?
In giving, it's education, and really parental controlled education is what is critical in our
Parental
lives.
control.
Yeah, whoever controls the education
Mm.
The hand who rocks the cradle rules the world, and there is no one who's better at rocking a cradle than a mama.
Then
There
who?
is no one than a mom.
Okay.
Moms do the best job. Anybody who else who does it, they don't love the child like a mom can. A
Mm-hmm.
mother's love is beyond comprehension. Father's leadership has more power for a child than anything else. And so the mother and father, the parents, need to control the education of their children. And when they give up that control to governments, when they give up that control to others that do not align with their worldview, with their morals, with what they believe, then our children are lost. And the way that we can give is by helping the next generation be able to give.
Mm-hmm.
And the only way that they are going to be able to do that is if they have parents that really are involved and parents that really are controlling the education of the next
Yeah.
generation and continuing so
Mm-hmm.
on and so forth.
Yeah, I don't even have kids, and but I follow politics and I follow what's going on in the U.S. regarding the educational system. And even though I don't have kids and I'm not near from it, and I don't even live in the U.S., but it really pisses me off, like what's going on with the educational system. They're teaching things that are ideological, even if they're true or not. That doesn't matter. But the thing is that they're teaching it as facts
Right,
when they're so far from being facts. They're ideological theories. So
right,
I really I relate to your cause, and I think it's a good cause because, and a lot of people, I mean, some people, ordinary people who doesn't follow this, that are not aware of like how the educational system in the US has gone from being like teaching people how to think, from being from teaching people what to think, and like
right,
being really ideological and everything. So I
right.
like your cause. Yeah.
Yeah, and so it's something that is very important to me. I read a book that was written in 1886 by a man named Zachary Montgomery, and it was a political book, but it dealt with his view on education. And once I read that, it's like that's what I want to support is a really proper education for the future, because in that everything is going to get a lot better.
Yeah, I'm sure. So time is running out, but
Right.
thank you again for coming in. It's been a great podcast. Thank you so much. And well, I mean,
It's
I
been a
can talk
blessing to
about.
be able to talk to you, Alex. It's fun, and I look forward to doing it again, hopefully in the future.
Yeah,
And if we get a chance, I'll see if we can't maybe have a chance for you to visit with Rod, because if you can do a podcast with him, the stories he can tell are absolutely amazing.
I'll tell you what, I'd love to.
I'll talk to him and see if we can arrange that.
Perfect. So thank you for listening, everybody. Cheers, and have a great day.